I hear Doc laughing.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. Okay, that
Can we
works.
can you share video?
I can't share video. I feel like a little bit of a Luddite here, and is that my podcasting experience has been audio podcasting. Never
That's
never set up a video type link. I did send you earlier this morning a folder of photographs, which I hope might help matters out a little bit because Jay used slides when he was on at the very first. But it sounds like you may have been too busy to get them.
that's all right. I can get them right now while we talk. Now, I have to brag a little bit. So
Oh,
you
please do.
are my first ever grad student.
Yes, yes. And I I consider you and I introduced you to people as my graduate advisor.
And it is just awesome that oh my gosh, you and I met online in 99
Had to have been
2000.
99. Had to have been 99. I'm looking at the degree right now is across the room and it's set at 2003, I guess. So I remember starting grad school just before just around 2000. So it had to be about 2000.
And I remember all the conversations we had as you fought to make IRAF do your bidding.
Oh yes, that's a wonderful example of listening to your teacher when they say that yes, I think you're going to be able to get this to work, but by the time you get it to work, the rest of the assignment will be done, and everyone will have finished it, and you won't.
Well, you did eventually finish the assignment.
Yes, only because I listened to you and did not try to get it going across what was at that point a nascent internet, really.
Yeah.
On I think it was
Okay, you're drifting away from your mic, I think. Your
oh
audio is cutting out.
um
There.
I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was, but it was a nascent internet at that point, and I was trying to get the data on my computer instead of using the data that was at the observatory at the time,
Can
and
you
trying to do
talk
that.
closer into your mic? Folks are having trouble hearing you.
That's the oddest thing. How's that?
That I
A
think is
little bit
better.
better.
Yeah.
Okay, a little bit better. All right, good. Okay. Um, yeah. So that was it. But it's an issue of listening to the teacher at times. Uh,
Now, I have your photos up, and the first one we have is of the observatory at Cornell University, which is a truly beautiful piece of architecture, even if it does need its dome painted.
this is Huertas Observatory, and the history of observatories at Cornell, even up to that time, was a history of fleeing the campus. The Oh yes, the first observatory was built. Um, There we go. There's a little bit of a delay here, so now I can see the photograph. The first observatory was built in what really is central campus, and then Fuertes was the second in what is now North Campus, and that actually worked out very nicely for several decades, really. And then, of course, the campus went out and overran it, and it fled to a place several miles away. And having the campus overwhelm it continued while I was there. They built a student center very close to it, and we had to fight to make sure that the lights would not completely overwhelm it. And what was funny is I thought with the grad students at the time, when we were doing public observing nights, they wanted to do and show nebula and things like that, and because of the light pollution,
You just
it
couldn't.
simply was not going to work. And so
Now,
I fought for double stars and things, and that worked out relatively nicely.
I pulled up a photo of the inside of the dome where you have this beautiful blue refracting telescope on a old clock wound
Yes,
mount.
yes. That is a beautiful clock wound mount, not only because it's clock wound, but you can see the inside of it and you can see how it works. And that telescope is maybe 7 feet in the air, and they like to joke that I was the only person at the observatory that was not qualified to use the telescope because the telescope was stored in a lateral position, and it would take
Oh,
jumping up jumping up to the objective lens to be able to get the telescope. And in order to open up the dome, I would have to literally hang my entire body off of the wheel to open up the dome. So it wasn't something I could do alone. So I got a niche for myself at the observatory during the public observing nights by having the grad students at Cornell maneuver the telescope and set it up. I would sit on those wooden steps that you see and tell everyone in the observatory, this is what we're going to see. We would turn the telescope to Gamma Andromeda, beautiful, beautiful double star in Andromeda, colorful double star, and I would say things like, you look up at the stars at night, and what color are they? They're basically white. Actually, stars have different colors. And
yeah.
what we're going to see with Gamma Andromeda is going to forever change your opinion on, do stars have colors? One is going to be a brilliant gold, the other is going to be an amazing sapphire blue. And
And
people are,
and you're drifting away from your mic. And while you get closer to your mic, I'm going to point out to everyone. So here is a picture of Doc close up, Richard Kenner, Kenny, sorry, Richard Kenny. But you go by Doc. You've always gone by Doc. And when I look at the big picture, you can see you next to a table. You are not a tall man. You are a big of heart, but not big of stature. Um, and so that really gives perspective to you versus the refractor.
yes, yes.
Now, you have gone on to do many different things in your life. And right now, the Kennedy Elementary School is one of the things that I've loved listening to you tell stories. So you are on what I think is your fourth career at this point.
I've lost count. I've
I don't
actually
know what
lost
you're going to
count.
be when you grow up, but it's going to be awesome.
This actually worked out oddly. I started, and really, honestly, right now I'm still technically a permanent substitute at Kennedy Elementary here in Somerville, Massachusetts. And what happened was I was a substitute teacher there at that point for the entire district, but I had sort of ended up concentrating in Kennedy, and I had been mainly placed in the lower grades.
Uh huh.
So one day they placed me in seventh and eighth grade just for a homeroom period and one what we call an X block. It's almost like a glorified study hall.
Yeah.
And the seventh and eighth grade teachers there, looked at me and said, "Well, you've been here for almost daily for 2 months. You almost know what you're doing. We'll fill out the rest of the schedule for you." And the first person they sent me to was Anthony Sharp, who turns out to be the seventh and eighth grade science teacher. Anthony takes one look at me and says, "You've been here for how long? You've been doing what for 10 years, and no one's told me about you? You're staying here for the rest of the day. I will clear it with anyone I need to." And then he spent the next several classes getting the class in the door, going, "Okay, guys, sharp, sharp, sharp. This is Mr. Kinne. He doesn't know it yet, but he's my new best friend. I want him to tell you what he's been doing for 10 years. It is amazing." And I didn't know he was going to do this. So I spent the next 10 minutes giving an ad hoc presentation on variable stars to seventh and eighth graders, like four classes, one after the other. And I became a go to person for science questions for the school. Yeah, I'm still that at this point. But now it's more than the seventh and eighth grades. It's all over the school. I got a, uh, um, a notification from one of the teachers about 2 weeks ago that a third grader had said, "Can you get the short teacher that tells the stories?"
And what I love listening to you is so you started out working at a planetarium in New York, I believe. Oswego?
Oswego, yeah, I did that. I did that as a student. And I've been trying to remember his name and I can't do it. But my planetarium operations teacher was permanently hospitalized halfway through the term. And when that happened, the head of the department took over the class, and two students, myself and somebody else, went to him and said, "What's going to happen to the planetarium? I mean, we have programs booked through next year," and he said, "Well, we're going to have to shut that down." And I
Yeah.
said, and we said, "We are the two stopped students in the planetarium operations class. We want to take over the planetarium." And he said, "Well, I can't really pay you." And we said, "We don't care. We're going to do this for the teacher." And we took over the planetarium. We took over the planetarium, the both of us, for a year. He then graduated, went to Cornell, and I did it for another year until I graduated.
That is amazing. So you've basically gone from being the student to being the one empowering the students.
I hope. I hope.
I think you've succeeded from the stories that I've been hearing. I'm going to admit it. I stalk you on Facebook. I keep track of you and the people in your lives and make sure that all is going well. And you went from doing that work at Oswego to doing IT and telescopes and so many other things up in Ithaca. And now you are the one helping the kids learn all the things. And it's kind of awesome. Um, what what is it that you love the most that you sometimes get to do?
Oh, well, now it's telling the stories. Now it's telling the stories, and seeing the kids of all ages get excited. Um, I mean, it's one thing to tell a story to a seventh and eighth grader about something and seeing them understand it and get something out of it. But what has shocked me is that I have been able to do this with first graders. First
Yeah.
graders, which is absolutely amazing. The other thing that has amazed me above is that at one point in time, what would happen is that I would end up, and I still end up, um, going at the end of the day to Sharp's classroom, and usually he has students, hanging around there. And one day, I had one student who said, "Hey, Mr. Kinney, I have a question. Can I get a question?" I said, "Sure." And Anthony was working with somebody else, so we stepped out of the room into the hall, and two other students followed, and we got into a discussion. I've handled questions not only about astronomy, but biology, chemistry, geophysics. I'll answer anything that I need to, but I'm also not afraid to say, "Nope, that's out of my field. I don't know." And I like to tell the students one of the most powerful answers a scientist can give is, "I don't know."
Yeah, that's
Um,
totally true.
and Anthony left at one point, and I didn't think anything of it. And with the students, now six of us, continued to talk. The next thing I knew, I looked at my watch, and it was 4 o'clock. And I said, "Guys, we've all missed our buses." um, but we stayed there and talked in the hall for almost an hour and a half.
That is amazing. Anytime you can get a tween kid to forget to go home.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And that story that I got, and this was 2 weeks ago. You know, can you get the small teacher that tells the stories?
Yeah.
That amazed me as well. And
And
what has happened is I've liked it enough that I now have my Massachusetts science teaching license, and
yes.
I'm looking for a job within the Greater Boston area school district.
And it's an amazing part of the country because you have such a diversity of students and opportunities mixed together in a very small part of the country. You can walk from one side of Boston to the other in a few hours if you don't stop too often.
You can, yeah.
And you come to this being able to show how the technology matters, how the science matters, and the history of the science as well. And you've been here telling the stories. Now, one thing we haven't hit on yet is the
Mhm.
podcasting that you've done. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, now the thing is, I haven't really done a lot of podcasting. That it surprised me when I got your email 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had to actually go back and search for the show I had done in globular clusters. Now, I also play an online video game.
Yeah, Eve Online.
Game Online, yes. And that video game recently has started a little sub game that actually does exoplanet detection. Does
Yes.
actual exoplanet detection as a sub game within the game. And when that started, um, I went to one of the podcasters, the major podcasters for the game, and I said, I know something about this. I think this would be neat to talk about on your podcast. And we did that. And what's funny is that I go back to that podcast now, and that was 2 years ago.
Uh huh.
I sounded, as far as I'm concerned, I sounded like a squirrel on speed. Just I did. And so I went back and I listened to the globular star clusters episode I did for 365 Days of Astronomy.
Uh huh.
And I was amazed and gratified that I did not sound like a squirrel on speed. I actually sounded reasonable. Um, and what was and that's largely the extent of my podcasting. Now, what was funny is that as a substitute, I will substitute for virtually any class. I have substituted for Spanish classes where I have started the class out with on the board, hola,
Uh huh.
senora, and I've said to the kids, all right, guys, this is going to be the most interesting Spanish class of your life because right here, and I tap the board, is the entire subtotal of what I know in Spanish. And one day I was substituting for a class that was learning about podcasting.
Uh huh.
And that class now knows about you.
Oh.
Interestingly enough, that class knows about you because I told the story of the podcast recording that you did when we were at the high energy astrophysics uh, conference
Conference,
in
New Mexico.
Las Cruces,
Yeah.
and we did a field trip to the LA, and you were preparing a podcast. In that day, it wasn't live; it was something that was being recorded, and you'd splice it in later. But you've got to remember this. This was a recording that I think you put in the podcast where you were in front of one of the radio telescopes and you were recording saying, well, this is one of the radio telescopes and it's huge right here. It's amazing how large it is as you're standing. Oh my God, it's moving, it's moving. Aaron, do you see
Yes.
it? It's moving. Because you didn't
That would be
expect it
what I
to
did.
happen. Yes, yes,
It started
yes,
moving. It was exciting. I'm a dog who likes squirrels.
yeah.
Um,
But that's a story that I told the kids in that seventh grade podcasting class. So they now know about you.
Thank you. That's awesome. That is truly awesome. Yeah, I kind of don't know what to say to follow that other than it's been a long ride. We've been doing 365 days of astronomy for 10 years, and you and I have known each other 20. Oh, first
20,
graduate student
20.
of mine.
Yes, yes. And that's just absolutely amazing. Um, I 20 years, and just that was just over the internet.
Yeah.
Uh, and then at one point, physically meeting you at it had to have been a dinner at one point, and I honestly don't remember what the dinner was about, but
Hmm.
all of a sudden I recognized this voice, and I turned, from one end of the table to the other, and yeah, Dr. Day, is that you?
Yes. Yes. So that may have been the last Crucis meeting in 2000. That would have been 2004, I
Four,
think.
yes, 2004. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. I think it was the Lost Cruises meeting.
That's amazing. What a small world it is. What an amazing time we live in. Now,
It is a small world, and that's one of the things that is interesting about astronomy. I the kids look at videos about and by Bill Nye,
yeah.
and they completely wig out when I say, "Oh yeah, 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 Bill and I have had dinner."
Yes,
What? You
it's
know Bill
true.
Nye? Yeah,
And Neil Tyson.
I worked with Bill a bit when we did the Sagan Planet Walk in Ithaca.
Yeah.
You know, Bill, I know Carl Sagan's wife too. Yeah, his son was Carl's son was a member of my science fiction club in Ithaca. Uh,
Yep.
oh my God, yeah, it's a small world.
It really really is. Now, you are someone who remembers the Apollo missions, and I'm wondering, do you have anything special planned for the 50th anniversary?
Oh, I don't have anything special planned for the 50th anniversary at this point. I have been very much following the movies
Okay.
that have been coming out. Um, at one point in time, there was a Twitter account that was doing uh, a live uh, a live stream of
Vintage
something,
Astro. That's Amy
vintage
Shira
Astro,
Keitel. Yeah.
and I'm wondering if something like that is going to be done for Apollo, because
Yeah.
that would be neat. I barely remember. I honestly
Yeah.
have to say I barely remember the moon landing. I was 4, and what happened was I was sitting on the stairs while my parents watched it. I was supposed to be in bed, and I was sitting in the stairs watching them watch this on a black and white television, wondering what they were watching. It
Oh,
would take
wow.
years before I realized what they were watching. But I actually saw the landing that way. But
That's
I didn't know it
amazing.
at the time.
Oh, wow. What an experience. And from that to Voyager to Shuttle to now we have the Falcon Heavy. I remember your Facebook post when you discussed those side by side landings initially. Can you revisit that for our audience
The side by side
of
landing.
the boosters?
Oh, I did. If I remember what you're talking about, what happened there was that I realized that they were going to be doing a launch, and I
Yeah.
realized you could see that over the internet, and it was going to take place. The landing was going to take place right after school let out,
Yeah.
and so I went to Sharp and I said, we can make an event out of this. We can invite everyone in the school. We can throw it up on your video screen, and we can make an event out of this because a lot of the kids here don't know what's going on, don't know how it's going on, and I think they'll really like this. And we had 20 kids in the
Uh-huh.
room after school watching this take place. And
That's
it worked out wonderfully because I was able to, augment the audio that was going on uh, as the video was going on, and
Yeah.
that worked out.
That is fabulous. So I know that most of what you do is in the real world. Is there any place where people can look to join you, or should they simply support their local schools?
They should definitely support their local schools. It's critical,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really take a lot. Not only support your local schools, but support your local kids.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing how little it takes if you just think it through to be able to make a connection with a kid. I go through mathematics and I go through probability theory in fourth grade, and it's dry as anything as it's presented. And I will say to the kids, guys, this actually works out in the real world. I use probability theory all the time. You want to know what I use probability theory for? And they look at me and go, what? What would you use probability theory for? And I go, Pokemon. What?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Pokemon. I'm on the MIT Pokemon team, and that's how I figure out battle strategies. Oh, Mr. T plays Pokemon, and it's an instant connection at that point in time. And at that point, you have the kids, um, and that's as valuable as anything else. Because if you can make that connection, then they'll listen to you. Um, Although I do have to say that I like to say that I think the first through fourth graders at Kennedy are getting their PhDs right now in how to ignore Mr. Kinney. But there's that. There we go. There we go. Yes, I see on the screen
Yep.
now.
And I'm
So,
I'm gonna pull up your avatar in just a moment.
yes, I hope you got the last present. So
I did. I did. So
so it
there
worked out.
there is Doc on Pokemon. Okay,
Yes,
so
with my
so
camera.
this half hour went far too fast,
I
but
did. It
uh,
really did.
so thank you so much for joining us. And next time, webcam, dude, webcam.
Well, actually, the picture worked out better than I thought, so that,
The
that worked
picture worked
out.
just fine. So thank you so much for being part of 20 years of my life and 10 years of
Yes.
365 days of astronomy.
Hey,
Uh,
you made that connection with me, and this is how your connection with me has turned out. So I,
oh,
I hope it worked.
well, thank you so very much. And I'm going to go ahead and hurl Cheerios for my dogs who are currently sitting on my feet, which is not on camera, and transition the screens so that we can get ready to bring on more guests.
There we go. We got about an hour to go right here.
We have one more hour to go, and there is a Cheerio on Eddie that is hanging on to his fur for dear life, as has been pointed out by the chat. Um, so thank you for being here, Doc, and
Thank you for having me. It really, it really has brought back wonderful, wonderful memories.
it it's been a wonderful adventure. Thank you so very much. And